What is this I see? Is that an Eleanor belly? It's Eleanor's belly. She likes it if I rub, like, scratch under her arm. She stretches her arm up. She loves when I scratch under her armpit. She loves it. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. What a good girl you are. Let me scratch your chin. Scratch, 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 scratch. Look at her little beans. Oh, what a good cat you are. Look at that belly. Now, if you guys know my history with Eleanor, when I found Eleanor, she was under a car in my old parking lot at my old apartment, and she had just been released from being neutered or spayed or whatever they call it. But she was 5 pounds. She's probably 10 now. She was 5 pounds at the time. Her belly was shaved, and there was her incision from her surgery was open and infected, and one of her eyes was closed through an eye infection, and the other was just barely open, and she was dying. She was not in a good place. I picked her up, started crying. Hi, honey. I brought her to the vet and got her some antibiotics and a little something I had to put on her incision and some eye drops and look at that face. Look at that face. And flash forward, she is a fat, happy little kitty cat. And I love her. You guys hear a lot and see a lot of Buddy, but Eleanor is rarely this content just to kind of hang out and be loved. Sometimes she's more skittish, even after these years. She's still occasionally skittish, but sometimes she lets me grab her belly. She does. All right, there's our little visit with Eleanor. Oh, I'm going to keep petting her after I stop filming, but there's Eleanor. Let me get my finger in your ear. Oh, she loves that too. You're a good cat. Yes, you are. Look at her whiskers. You're so cute. Hi, Eleanor. Hi. Look at her tail. Hi, Eleanor. She looks like she's napping, but she is wide awake. You can tell by her tail. Yeah, she is. She is going. Yes, buddy, I know. We just had a little brushing. She needed a little brushing. And she is recovering from that great effort by... Looks like she's... Oh, I thought she was taking a nap, but no, her tail is telling a different story. Yeah, I hear you, buddy. What, buddy? Whoop. Hey guys, how are ya? Welcome back to my channel. It's me, Steven. Look at my new chapeau. Well, it's not new. It's new to me. It's an eBay purchase. I got it for nothing. Look at me showing all this cleavage. So I love this brand. It's called Black Clover, I think. I wear the large, extra large with no snapback, without the Velcro strap. I much prefer this brand, this style. It just fits so well. You don't have to have a lot of hair to fill the hat. Like, it just fits nicely. I love this hat. And my head has so much sun damage. I got sun damage here, I got sun damage here. So I'm trying to wear hats more often. I don't like the way I look in ball caps, but this doesn't look half bad with the beard. So what am I doing today? So I'm going into the mall here, the Boulevard Mall. Not my favorite destination in the world, but there's an optometrist in here that I actually like. I don't love the eyeglass selection they have here, but these are from there and they're nice. So once in a while I find a pair there. I got a pair of glasses. I'm talking with my hands. I got a pair of glasses. I ordered a pair, I should say, that are very nondescript, very simple. They remind me of like 1994. They're bronze with very little metal details. They're subtle. And most of my glasses are very dramatic. But I tried them on yesterday. The distance was fine. The intermediate was garbage. And the near vision, the reading prescription, which is the lower part of the lens, absolute trash. I could not use them. They were unusable. And I've sold progressives for years. I've worn them for years. So this was not a successfully made pair of glasses. So I'm going to go in there and see if they can troubleshoot by checking out this pair, which is the last pair that they made. And they're very, very successful. So blah, blah, blah. And then after I get these glasses, I hope they can troubleshoot them or they'll solve the problem. I figured I would come over to you guys again and say hi and share a story. Today is a very big anniversary for me. It's, you know, the older you get, the more anniversaries you collect. And this is an anniversary I kind of forgot a little bit until, I forgot what it was this morning that woke me up and went like, oh wait, today is the 22nd. August 22nd, 2009. So what does that make it? So 14 years ago, I got married. Dun, dun, dun. I know if you've been with me for a long time, you've heard me mention that I have an ex-husband. Have I ever told you about my ex-husband? I might have mentioned him once or twice. I don't think I've ever made a video about him, but I figured today is my wedding anniversary. Still feels weird to say. So I figured I'd share a little story time with you, like how we met, which is kind of a colorful story, so you might want to fast forward when I start talking about that. There's a lot of color there. And then what our lives were like, maybe, and I'll try to share that with an objective point of view and not just like the ex-husband, you know, and then how it ended and the divorce. So I figured it's time. Oh, he just scared the pants off of me. I figured I'd share a little story time. Here it comes again. Yeah, we'll do that. But I'm gonna take care of the glasses first. I think I shared with you a few minutes of Eleanor and Buddy today. Just before so I don't forget, I'll tell you now. Something I don't think you've been able to see easily on Buddy, but if you've looked at the past couple videos and saw something wrong with Buddy's face, you're not imagining it. So he, you know, and I took him to the vet to have his teeth cleaned. They clipped his nails. They clipped his nails. Now they don't have their nails clipped very often. And when they do, it's usually because they went to the vet or I've done my best. Well, they clipped Buddy's nails, but they clipped them. And you know, when you cut your own nails and there's a sharp edge and you accidentally catch yourself or maybe somebody else. Well, they clipped his nails to an angle that when he scratched his face, he cut himself up by his nose on his, I don't know which side, right hand side. And then there's a spot right over his eye that he scratches occasionally that the hair was literally worn away. And I just noticed it the other day and I'm like, oh my God. And then I realized what it was. Those are the places he scratches himself. But it's never been like that. He never cut himself. So his nails, the cut was just like little knives in his poor little face. But he's healing. He's healing. The fur is growing back there. And it's growing back on his arm, too, where they had to do the IV. Blah, 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 blah. Let me stop talking. Let me go in and get my glasses looked at. I will see you soon. Hey guys, all right, so the new glasses are really, really working out well. All they needed was that little adjustment. Very happy with them. I stopped into the Goodwill over there. I picked up a little Murano glass dish, very, very pretty, 99 cents. It was a steal. And then these two wooden candle sconces that were super vintage, made by Tell City Furniture in Indiana a very long time ago. There's a bunch of them listed on eBay. Some of them sold, but the line was moving so slowly, and I realized how irritating it would be to pack these things. I put them back on the counter and just walked away. Very happy with myself. But I am going to go to a different Goodwill because it's 1:50 in the afternoon. It's not that far away. I have nothing else to do except for laundry. So I figured I'll go over there, and it gives me a moment or two in the car to share with you my little story time. So, to preface my story time, there's already a small handful of you who seem to be easily very sensitive, and possibly don't agree that I should have the same rights as a heterosexual when it comes to certain rights and privileges and responsibilities in this country, like marriage. So if you don't agree with same-sex marriage, or it irritates you or bothers you, certainly do not watch this video. And if you are easily sensitized to gay men and culture and all that stuff, just really don't even watch the video. If you are going to leave a comment, I will delete and block anybody who's incredibly rude. You can be whatever, but if you're rude enough, goodbye. You'll never see me again, okay? Just a heads up. All right, so, because the beginning of the story is a little colorful, and it's very telling of who I used to be. Even sober, I was a very different person back then. So just be warned, there's going to be a fair amount of color involved in today's story. So I met my ex-husband. Even that phrase just sounds so surreal to me. I met my ex-husband in March of 2009. I met him in March of 2009. It must have been around my birthday. I went to this bar in Boston called the Ramrod, a gay bar called the Ramrod. It was a gay leather bar. And it was everything you would imagine a gay leather bar called the Ramrod to be. It was exactly what you're imagining, if not worse. Yeah, did you ever see Police Academy? You guys who are old enough should know. The Blue Oyster, the gay bar that they always ended up walking into with the leather caps and all that stuff. It was that without the comedy. It could occasionally be pretty intense. But I had seen everything. I had done everything. I have the t-shirt. There's no way to shock me anymore. And that particular evening, they were doing demonstrations of S&M. Yup. Metal hooks. Lots of wax. Lots of pinching things. Lots of really scary things happening in this demonstration. Because things like that happen. Not just in gay circles. There are plenty of heterosexuals who are into kink. But this was like a kink exhibition or something that night. And at this point in my life, I had been so like, over it. I had been and done everything. There's just no way to surprise me anymore. And I kept hearing these people going, ooh, it hurts or whatever. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. You're overreacting. So I'm walking around in this leather biker jacket, like a motocross jacket, not like a motorcycle jacket, with a black t-shirt, jeans, and my Fry boots that I still own that have a little piece of metal chain running through between two pieces of leather. Oh my God, these boots are amazing. Neiman Marcus, love them. But I was in the back room there, walking around, bored. I'm like watching all these demonstrations of people, writhing in pain. And I'm like, I'm so over this. And wherever I look, every time I turn around, there's this little guy, this little blonde guy. And I'm like, little guy. I like shorter guys anyway. But he's like always there. And he's teeth like this, smiling at me. Every time I turn around, he's there. And he's smiling at me. And it's like he's following me around the bar. And I'm getting really irritated by it. So I turn to him, finally, scaring the hell out of him. I turn to him, I'm like, you obviously want to talk. And he goes, hi, my name's Dan. I'm like, I'm Canadian. Of course you are. And, I don't know what happened. He really, really irritated me. Like, I wanted to, like, bite him, not in a sexual way. He was just really irritating. That sounded really bad. But I don't know what happened. An hour later, I'm making out with him. No idea. That was not in the plan to make out with this guy, and he was a good kisser. I'll tell you the rest of that evening. I don't really want to tell you how the rest of that evening turned out because it wouldn't be polite. Let's just say I lost my t-shirt and we ended up going back to this bed and breakfast that he was staying in, where he finished the evening by snoring in a way that was so terrifying. I've never heard a person make noises like that. But I was so, après, feeling the warm glow and all that stuff, blah, 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 blah. Turns out he did live in Canada. He lived in the Ottawa area. And the next day, he was going to be heading off to Provincetown, which is the very tip-top of Cape Cod, where Cape Cod hooks a little bit. It's a little town at the end of that. He was going there to go camping. But he stayed in Boston for an extra day. And then he left. He went camping, he was planning. It was his vacation. So he went off camping, and we talked over and over again while he was gone. And I kind of felt this little flutter that I was not used to because I didn't have a lot of feelings at the time. And except for drama. But I was like, this feels weird. If you've ever met that guy on a cruise or wherever, this overnight romance, there was a little flutter. I couldn't really explain it, or I don't know. And he was feeling the same thing. Of course, it's like instant love, instant romance, TikTok, right? So he came back from his vacation. Oh, the phone. Hey there, sorry, my phone got so hot it stopped working. Yes, it's very hot here in Las Vegas still. It was cool for a couple of days, but now we're back to sizzling. I stopped into a different Goodwill, and I found one thing. It's like a muffin pan kind of little tart pan kind of thing. It was $4.99, and then it was half price. So I figured these would be better portion sizes than an entire 13x9 baking dish, a la when I had brownies for dinner the other week. Yes, I got this little thing. Whatever. Let's get back to the story, shall we? I had to let my phone cool off a little bit, so I took that as an excuse to go to Panda for a little bite to eat. I got 2 fortune cookies, so the fortunes were a refreshing change just in your future. I don't want change. I don't like change. I want to stay exactly where I am right now. Thank you. And the other one said, your career plans look bright. I don't care. I don't want any changes to my life. I don't want my career to be brighter. It's exactly where I want it to be. So I was telling you a story. Dan was in Provincetown camping. There's a campground called Coastal Acres, and it was I don't know, $20 a night to stay there. It's $75 now. But so he was camping in Provincetown, but he missed me, and he wanted to spend some time with me before he had to drive back up to Ottawa. And so he came back a few days early up to Boston. And at the time, I was living in an unbelievably fantastic, expensive studio 2 streets over from Fenway Park on Queensbury, 36 Queensbury. So he spent a couple days with me, and it was so incredibly romantic and sweet. We sang to each other, and we ate and didn't eat and did lots of, and it was an amazing time. And when he left, I almost died. Now, if you remember me talking about my ex-boyfriends in Florida, it was the same sensation. When we left the cruise ship, we were separating, I was losing something of my soul. And the same thing, it felt like the same thing. When Dan left, he went back up to Ottawa. But he didn't work full time. He had a part-time job. He was on disability because he had some sort of psychological problem, which really should have been a sign of things to come. So he didn't work full time. So he would drive down to Boston to visit me and spend some time with me. On weekends, I didn't have a car. I would work until 5 o'clock on Friday. Then I would run over to South Station, jump on a bus from Boston to Montreal. I would then wait 2 hours and then jump on another bus from Montreal up to Ottawa. And I would get to Ottawa at like, I don't know, 10 o'clock the next morning. And I would do that every weekend. When he wasn't coming down, I did that every weekend. I would try to sleep on the bus. It didn't work. So I would get there on a Saturday morning at like 10 o'clock in the morning. He'd pick me up. I wouldn't sleep the whole day, which probably set me up to be a flight attendant. I wouldn't sleep the whole day because I didn't want to lose a minute of time with him. And then we would go to sleep that night on Saturday night. And Sunday morning, I would get up and I'd have to get ready for, was it a 1 p.m. bus back to Montreal to go back to Boston. I did that all the time. Between that, we would Skype and call, and we'd cry to each other on the phone and sing songs to each other. I did not want to be without him, and it was reciprocal. And it went on like that for a while. I would say the beginning of August. Was it the beginning of August? I forget. We were in Provincetown on the beach. We drove up there for the weekend, camping. And we were on the beach, and he found a pop top, like an old fashioned, like, you kids don't know what they look like. They used to kill you on the beach. They'd cut your foot open. It was like the top half of an old fashioned soda can or a beer can pull tab. It was a very different thing than you're used to. But it was the top part of that. And he picked it up and was like, wow, I haven't seen one of these in years. And we had been having a conversation over the course of the few weeks before about what was going to happen with our relationship and how should we progress, because this was going somewhere. What was it, and we were in different countries, the conversation got to the point where I was going to consider moving up to Ottawa and emigrating, like moving there serious. And he picked up the pop top that night. It was evening, and he kind of put it on my finger and said, "Would you marry me?" Kind of a surprise, kind of expected at the same time, but not a pop top. But that's about our budget at the time. And he had, would you marry me? It was definitely romantic, but it was also practical in terms of his question, because it would just make it easier for me to move to Ottawa, to Canada, if we were married than it would be if we were just, single. So, yeah, we agreed that night. We get married. It wasn't a practical move, but it wasn't 100% just pure romance either. Not that I didn't cry my eyes out, of course. But we went back to the campground, and did I mention he snored? It was debilitating, his snoring. It really ended up causing a big problem. So I announced it to those people who needed to know. There's a whole long, unpleasant story about my mother and my announcing I was getting married that I probably shouldn't go into. It was really the end of our relationship. I had tried giving her a chance to be a human being and involved in my life, but yeah, it was like the last straw. But I'm off topic. Hold on one sec. There's a homeless person who's approaching me. One sec. All right. I thought this was going to be a different experience than it is. He's just looking for some shade. So we had a party at my aunt Joanne's house, my father's sister. I don't talk about them much because they're not really a part of my life at all. But she had a party at her house. I called it a preception. You know how there's a wedding and then there's a reception afterwards? Well, we weren't married yet, but we were having a party. So I figured, let's have the party before the wedding. So the weekend before the wedding, we had my preception, which I think should be a thing. And because it was a lot nicer to get married and not have to worry about having a reception or a party or the responsibility and the blah, blah, obligations. So we had a party at my Aunt Joanne's house, and it was very, very nice. A ton of my friends from Boston, all in recovery, came out to the house, and my aunt and her husband were somehow surprised that my sober friends were as wonderful as they are, but I kept hearing they're so nice. Let's see, and then the next weekend we drove up to Provincetown. We were going to go camping for my honeymoon, kind of, so to speak. So we drove up to Provincetown, to the campground, got set up. A bunch of his friends from Ottawa were there. It was the same weekend as Carnival in Provincetown, which meant, I mean, the city is just pregnant with people. The city was just pendulous with people. It was just so busy, but also fantastic. So we had a great party the night before. It was, I had it in my head that I wanted to get married just before sunset, like a half hour before sunset, so that the light was just soft and diffused and beautiful. We were getting married on the beach in Provincetown. All I needed was a permit, which was $35, and we gave, what was his name? I forget his name. A friend of Dan's, who was our officiant. We gave him $300 to do his thing, and which seemed like a lot of money. But we showed up. Oh, did I tell you a hurricane was making landfall when I was getting married on the beach? Yeah. Was it Hurricane Bill? I think it was Hurricane Bill. The remnants of the storm were going to be making their way towards Provincetown. And I'd say it was about 5:30. The plan was to start the ceremony at 6 p.m. About 5:30, we're in the parking lot, all dressed. Dan and I both wore, I wonder if I can find a picture of the two of us. I'll try. I'll insert it here. There's a picture, if there is one. You saw it, or you didn't. We're in the parking lot at the beach, and it starts to rain. Beep, 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 beep. Little drops, but then it stopped. So at 6 o'clock, we ran down to the beach with the handful of friends that Dan had. My mother and my aunt Peggy were there. Nobody else showed up, which is not unusual. It's asking someone to really make some Herculean effort to drive from, say, Providence to Cape Cod in the end of August during Carnival. It would be unfair to ask anyone to do that. But my mother and my aunt did make it up there, but that's a different story. So photographs, we didn't have a photographer, but for some reason, anybody who had a beach chair that was within eyesight came over to our wedding and sat down in a circle around us. So most of the people that were there were just strangers on the beach with cameras. And so afterwards, I asked everybody, could you just email me some pictures, or, whatever you got. So Dan and I both wore the same outfit. I bought at Marshall's for the two of us. It was a white short sleeve linen shirt, a pair of white linen pants, no shoes, just the pants rolled up at the ankle. At the end of the day, our feet were like black because people had little bonfires and little beach fires the night before, so there was like charcoal and stuff in the sand, but I digress. Our wedding bands were little titanium wedding bands I got at some outlet. They were like $19 a piece. Again, that was our budget. And I was quite happy. I was joyous to have a wedding band. Now, this story has probably bored you, except for the part about the ramrod. But the fact that I was getting married was so significant to me. It was never going to happen. Now, I come from a generation where the idea of being able to get married to your man as a man was never going to happen. It wasn't even imagined. It wasn't even thought of. It was like the ancient Egyptians imagining penicillin. It just wasn't going to happen, you know. It was never going to happen, not to me, ever. So, because I was unlovable and I was incapable of love. And the fact that I was on the beach in Provincetown getting married, I can't describe how epic this was to me. It was the pivotal moment of my life at that point, outside of my getting sober. But so yeah, we got married on the beach. I had laminated the what I wanted to read. I can't, what's that word? Your wedding, I forget. The thing you say, the speech you say. I had printed it out and had it laminated, and I had a few of them printed so I could hand them out to people so I could hold one, because I was crying so hard when I was reading that no one could understand a word I was saying. I was like speaking in tongues. I mean, I was a mess, but I was so happy. Oh, I was so happy. And yeah, so that was my wedding. We went to an Italian restaurant in Cape Cod, on Cape Cod, and I paid for anybody who wanted to go to dinner with me. Again, I didn't have a reception. I had already had my pre-reception, where I got the best cookware ever. But yeah, so we went to dinner at this Italian restaurant, had a wonderful time. Then we went back to the campground. He had a camper. It's one of those pop-up campers where it's like a rectangle where it opens up like this, and there's like a bed on each side with a canopy in the middle. And then we had a one little screen room, little screen tent that we had placed over the picnic table because mosquitoes were pretty bad. And we had our honeymoon night. And then we went to sleep. Well, he went to sleep. I did not go to sleep because I've already mentioned his snoring. His snoring was a character in our relationship. It was that bad. He didn't have a CPAP. He refused to do anything about it. And that was just a little teeny part of what was a bigger problem in the end. But he refused to treat that at all. So the end of my honeymoon night, I slept with a sleeping bag on top of the picnic table under that screen tent. That's where I spent my honeymoon night, sleeping on a picnic table while he snored in the camper. I'm surprised anybody got a night's sleep that night in the whole campground. But it was beautiful. It was weird. It was weird. And I even in saying it, I can't believe that'll happen. But it was magical. It was fantastic and phenomenal. The next couple of days were Carnival in Provincetown, which is a huge party. I got tan. I have never been so tan in my life. I was purple. I was aubergine with tan. I still have some sun damage, I'm sure, on my head from that weekend. Yeah, so we got married. Went back to Boston afterwards, spent a couple of days. Then he had to go back up to Ottawa. I had to resume my life. And our plan was to, I had saved up money. I think I had like $1,400. He was going to do the paperwork for my moving up there, for my emigration in Ottawa, because it was easier and cheaper. And now we were married. So it was supposed to be just a lot easier. And again, I should have, looking back with hindsight, I should have seen how long it took for these things to happen or not happen, as a sign as to what was to come later, and maybe if I was making a mistake or not in getting married to him. I don't know. But so I gave him the money to use for the paperwork and the immigration, all that stuff, and he kept saying. And we continued our thing. I would go up to Ottawa. He would come down to visit me. We'd call on the phone. We'd talk and we'd cry and we'd sing to each other and blah, blah, blah. Months go by. And there's no paperwork. He hasn't done anything. Then he says to me that he needs a car repair on his RAV4. He needs something done to that. And could he borrow some money? Not a weird thing. Not weird, because he had nothing. And I had little, but he had nothing. That was fine. I'm not a gold digger or anything, but I was like, sure, well, if you haven't used the money yet for the immigration, which you should have, then you just take it out of there. And so we did, and it's kind of hard to describe how it felt after, as things progressed. We were married. Someone out there is asking, how long were you married, Stephen? We were together after our marriage 1 year, 4 days, and I'd say about 10 hours. We got married on the 22nd. His birthday is the 26th of August. So it's hard to describe how kind of rocky things got and how distant things got in the course of like 4 or 5 months, 5 months, 6 months. And he had some undiagnosed and some diagnosed mental issues, psychological issues, bipolar, and a couple of other things that he really hadn't shared with me at all. He was pretty good at hiding a lot of that stuff from me until he wasn't really good at it. And we started spending so much time together, even though we lived apart, that it was getting harder and harder for him to hide some of his biggest challenges. And yeah, it's really hard to describe how bad things got, even within that year. I'm trying to think of what else I should tell you about that time. So his apartment where we were living in when I was up in Ottawa was utterly fantastic. Oh my God, fantastic. It was kind of it wasn't the best place, but it was really the location. It was right near Kent and Gloucester, right downtown in Ottawa, steps from Parliament Hill. We used to walk up to Parliament Hill, and there used to be the cats of Parliament Hill. If you Google the cats of Parliament Hill, there was this enormous, what looked like a giant birdhouse, a 2-story, probably 30 feet long birdhouse with lots of holes in there, and it was built for stray cats that they had all neutered and that they would feed. You could put money and donations into the little box to help feed the cats. Well, Dan and I would go up to Parliament Hill when we were having a really nice time. We'd go up to Parliament Hill, sit on a bench with a blanket over our laps with little bags of Friskies, and these cats would come up and eat treats out of our laps. And other tourists would come up and try to pet the cats, and the cats would fly, and then they would eventually come back to us for their treats and stuff. It was a wonderful place. I love Ottawa. I love Canada. I just think Canada is the best. But Ottawa itself, I just love Ottawa as a city. But as things came to a head, Dan would spend more and more time sitting on, picture this, Dan sitting in like a beach chair kind of thing on his balcony in a 3X bathrobe. The guy was like 5'7" and maybe 160 pounds, but he's in a 3X white bathrobe, smoking a cigarette. I'll never date anybody who smokes again. Smoking a cigarette while staring blankly at the building across from us. And he'd sit there for hours. And it got bad, and he wasn't willing to treat anything or acknowledge that he had any problems at all, and it got worse, and it got bad and worse and worse. And then it was his birthday. It was his birthday. It was the 26th, and we had just watched a movie. I don't know what it was, and it was bad. It's hard to describe. If you've been in a relationship that's died, it's hard sometimes to describe like what it was that was the last straw. My last straw was when we had an argument, another one, and I said to him, I asked him a question I'll never ask again. Do you even love me? And he said, I don't know. And for me, that's enough. I know that for some of you, like my grandparents, when they got married forever in front of God and man. That was it. They were married for the rest of their lives. They were happy, but that was a different generation. I am not built to suffer, and I was suffering at that time. I was suffering. And he was too in his way, but there was no need for me to take both of our suffering together and wear it as I was. He said he didn't know. And I was like, you don't know. Did you know last week? Did you know when we got married? Did you know? And it got ugly. He said he didn't know. And I grabbed a duffel bag, a hockey duffel bag, those giant hockey bags, and I threw everything I had in that bag, and I took a cab to the bus terminal, the Greyhound station in Ottawa, and I waited for the bus, and I went home. I didn't cry. I don't think I had any emotions at all. I was numb. And I know that sounds harsh and abrupt and irresponsible, which is probably the truth in some ways, but it's what happened, and that's what really honestly needed to happen. Britney Spears and Kim Kardashian had shorter marriages than I do. I had to keep reminding myself of that. But I got back home to Boston, to South Station. I have my big duffel bag, and I'm standing on the subway platform for the Red Line, right at the edge of the yellow line there. That's the boundary, of the safety boundary for the subway, that you don't want to hit that third rail, God willing. I stood there on the yellow line looking at the rails, and a train is coming, and I'm thinking, it can't hurt really that much for that long, can it? And that thought lasted for moments. They were very long moments, but it lasted just for a few moments. And then I'm thinking, I'm gonna do that over a man, a Canadian man. Like, nothing wrong with Canadians, but you know what I mean? I'm like, I'm gonna jump on the third rail because of him. So that lasted moments. I got on the train, and I went down to Ashmont, where I was now living with, because I had given up my apartment, I gave up my job, I gave up everything. Moved in with some friends of mine, Lex and David, who really saved my life. I fell apart telling Lex what happened. We were in the kitchen, and this big monologue, like this one, came out, but much more dramatic with lots more tears. And that's how that ended. We just decided, Deanna and I decided, this is probably the last time we spoke, that we decided that it would be easier again in Canada to get a divorce. Now, in Canada at that point, all you had to do is just not live together for a year. And then it was like the equivalent of a no contest divorce or something like that. So we just decided from that date we wouldn't live together, which is clear. And it was very clear after one conversation that a divorce was next. This was nothing that a separation could resolve, because he was not willing to do any work. At the time, I don't think I would have been willing to do any of the work either. But I was a very different person back then. So we just waited a year. And then I received my divorce papers in the mail. I have no idea where those are. That was it. That was the end of that. And, now, it's easy to say, oh, the relationship ended, that was it. That was one of the darkest moments in my life, shy of me wanting to end things before I got sober, being in a locked psych ward for a week. But this was a close second to that, in that, do you remember I was telling you how it was completely never going to happen that I got married? It was never going to be. It was not even something I would have ever even thought of. Now that it had happened, I had proof. I had proof that I could get married, that I could love, that I could be involved in a relationship like that. And then this ending of it just proved that I was right all along, that I was not worth loving, that I was incapable of loving someone, that things were never going to happen for me like that. And this just seemed like absolute proof of the darkest thoughts I had had. And I carried that around for a real long time. It's probably still in my head to this day, because I'm very quick to tell you that I haven't had a date since November of 2017. So I'm probably still scarred a little bit from that relationship. But yeah, so that is the story. Like almost every traumatic experience in my life that I see as traumatic in my life, because sometimes that's not true trauma, but when it feels like trauma, almost every time I come out of it stronger, like Christina Aguilera says, you know, almost every time I've come out of it with a different skill set and stronger and more resilient, and that is definitely the case. I'm happy I got married. I'm very proud of the fact that I was the kind of person that could say in front of my higher power and my friends and family that yes, I was willing and able and happy to embrace the responsibility of marriage. But at yeah, so there were silver linings, I'm sure. I'm having a hard time thinking of one right now. But I have been talking for way too long. I am so surprised this all came out in one piece. This part did. But yeah, I'm going to let you go. I am going to go home and have a proper meal, hang out with the cats for a bit, and there we are. Once again, if you have any comments, try to keep them civil. You can be negative. I have made worse choices in my life than get married to this poor schlub, so there's very few things you could say in the comments section that would be really untenable and unmanageable. But if there are any comments that go beyond that, I will delete them. I will block you from my channel and you'll never see me again. But that's like most of my old exes anyway, so you would just consider yourself an ex of Steven. I'm rambling at this point, so I'm going to see you later. All right? Fly safe. Bye.